this could be. I haven't seen my Super Nintendo since 2003. That's alright, I don't mind. I've got a Switch in the old switcheroo. My friend Mike and Jaymo too.
And I will say, all right, everyone, welcome back to the old switcheroo where we're talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Jaymo. Play along on our epic quest to research and review all 250 plus games in the Nintendo Switch Online retro catalog. Today we are soaring over Pilotwings for the SNES and Pilotwings for the Nintendo 64, an episode we are calling In-Flight Entertainment. Now, Mike, you travel a lot for your job. Do you enjoy flying?
A little bit. It depends on how often I'm having to do it.
So it definitely can wear thin.
Oh, yeah. When you know where the outlets are in airports that are in states you've never lived in, you are traveling a lot.
Oh man. You got to keep that switch charged. I love everything about flying. I love aircraft, I love airports, but I don't know if I've ever spent time daydreaming about the ability to fly. But you know who has? Our guest and my longtime friend Colleen. How you doing, Colleen?
Doing good.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. This is a long time coming.
Yeah.
Do you remember a Dungeons and Dragons campaign I ran almost 20 years
Yes.
ago? The big
Yep.
bad was this evil Ifrit. Remember this?
Yep. I wished, like my character wished for the power of flight,
Yes,
and it was a successful wish.
yes.
And so I spent like every session up until her death trying to fly, like randomly, and I kept rolling my save because it turned out that it was I could fly in one direction and go straight down.
Correct.
Kept making my save, and that's why I did not die that way.
So what Colleen's referring to is, Mike, the plot of this story I made was that there is this evil genie called an Ifriti, and he's basically granting monkey paw wishes around the kingdom. So he'll give you what you want, but not in the way you thought you want, that you wanted it. And so Colleen wanted to fly, and in a very either creative or uncreative move, I'm not sure,
That was creative.
the genie granted the ability to only fly straight down to the ground. And so, Colleen, I thought I remember your character actually realizing this at some point because I have vivid memories of your character jumping off a rampart with your sword beneath you and then using.
No, that was Cade.
Okay, different character.
Yeah.
That's not flying, that's falling
Yeah.
with style.
There you go.
No, because I remember she died in an encounter in like a dungeon cell or something
Yeah.
because like it was already like down to zero, and then like I had all my stuff taken away, and then it was like, yeah, we're gonna kill you now.
Eesh.
Yeah. But then it was like, and then after that, when she had died and I was rolling up a new character, you're like, yeah, so that wish you made, this is how it works.
Yeah, like if only I'd known that sooner.
Right?
But I think the concept of flight has probably fascinated you for a while, Colleen, because one of your favorite pieces, or one of my favorite pieces of your art you ever
Yes.
made, the stunning hand-drawn animation of a girl in a hospital unknowingly imagining the sensation of dying, but she's perceiving it as growing wings and taking to the sky. Mike, have you seen this one?
I have not.
You got to check it out. It's amazing. Colleen, what about flying do you find appealing both as like a person as and an artist?
I don't know. It's always been there. Like I remember making paper wings for like for my action figures and taping them on. Right? So it's like
Yeah.
it's always been there. It's like I think it was probably one of my earliest wishes was to have wings and fly.
And you were a big like Christopher Reeve Superman fan.
Yes. I was a Superman fan, but especially after the accident with my dad.
Yeah.
Because Christopher Reeves, had the same basic injury
Yeah.
and stuff. And so he had started the foundation. So it was like, it was kind of giving hope. And then Christopher Reeves died, and then 2 weeks later my dad died.
There's two great men who
Yeah.
like kind of subconsciously like instilled this desire of flight in you.
Yeah.
But they both be really proud of you. Like I don't know. I just I'm a fan. I'm a fan is all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
Thank
course.
you.
Well, lady and gentleman, I think without further ado, we should hit the ground running. Are you guys both prepared for takeoff today?
Yeah.
Tray tables up.
There we go. And my seat's in the full upright position.
We're back at the Ifriti.
So let's jump into our first game today, which is going to be Pilotwings on the Super Nintendo, released in 1991. As described on Nintendo Switch Online, join the Flight Club to take to the skies and experience a variety of aerial activities. Take off and pilot a biplane through rings along a predetermined flight path, or drift serenely in a hang glider, catching thermal currents to gain altitude. In either case, just be sure to stick the landing. Strap on the rocket belt to blast your way around an obstacle course. If that's not enough, reach maximum velocity as you tackle a skydiving lesson at 3,800 feet. Complete specific objectives within a set time limit to score points, and obtain certification in 8 different lessons. Your goals will become more challenging, and weather conditions will make controlling your vehicle more difficult as you progress. If you succeed, you'll be rewarded with the opportunity to pilot an attack helicopter on a daring rescue mission. What do you guys think of that description, huh?
This sounds straight out of the era of like every game commercial being like explosions and like, you getting this power.
Yeah. Even though Pilotwings is a very pacifist kind of game.
I do find it interesting that description like makes a very clear point about the attack helicopter.
Yeah.
Whereas the manual at least just like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the instructions for a helicopter. We don't have one, but just in case.
It says we don't have one, but just in case.
Not in those exact words.
Okay.
But it's just like, yeah, here's these. We don't have a helicopter.
So were you like surprised to discover that there was one in this game?
No, because I would like the manual is at least kind of doing like the winking nod
Okay.
of like, yeah, there will be one, but that description is just straight up like, oh yeah, we've got that's part of this game. Like it removes that even the pretense of, oh, isn't this a surprise?
It's Qui-Gon's noble end. There you go. Well, let's take a look at the box art, since that was often people's first impressions of these games.
So it's getting like the stab as you run in.
Qui-Gon's noble end?
Yeah. That's how he died.
I guess so. Yeah. So we're gonna see a theme today. Games that have pretty amazing graphics, but I think very unimpressive box art. Both versions, the both North American and Japanese box art, there's almost nothing to them. There's like the cloudy sky, the Pilotwings logo in like kind of metallic font. North American one doesn't even have like a hang glider. Like Colleen, you're an artist. Like, is it just me, or are these box arts kind of a bummer?
They are. They kind of are. Like I probably would not have picked up the because the N64 one was similar, if I remember.
The N64 one's weird. It's a lot more focused on the characters.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But like this is probably why I didn't pick up the Super Nintendo one, because look at that. It's like,
Oh yeah.
no, that was the start screen. I think the box art was just like that. It was basically trying to recreate this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not. There's some little clever touches, like the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo 64 one, the dot of the word Pilotwings, the dotted I. That's one of your little targets you're trying to hit in the game. But I don't know. It's just like you have all these cool vehicles. You don't put any of them on the boxes.
Yeah, I think like the rings in this don't really convey anything.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you have to know what those are for this to have any meaning, which is the exact opposite of what you would want for box art. Like you want box art that someone looks at and goes, "Oh, that's neat," not something that you play the game and look back and go, "Oh, now I see what they were doing."
What Mike's referring to is that both the Japanese and North American box art have the green rings in the sky, but there's not even a vehicle flying through them. Like, very weird decisions.
There is neither pilot nor wings in the American one.
Yeah, at least the Japanese one has a hang glider in the top right corner. Well, so this was developed and published by Nintendo, and it was directed by Tadashi Sugiyama. We enjoyed his work several times in season one when we covered baseball and Zelda 2 for the NES and Super Mario Kart for the Super Nintendo. Got some knowledge's Nintendo power trivia for you guys. According to Unseen 64, Pilot Wings was first shown to the Japanese press in 1988. 2 years before the launch of the SNES, this game served as a demonstration of Nintendo's revolutionary Mode 7 graphics, which creates the illusion of 3D movement by rotating and scaling 2D backgrounds. Originally called Dragonfly, the player would have controlled a flying insect capable of firing a variety of projectiles at its grounded enemies. When the development of the game shifted to a flight sim, the combat elements were largely scrapped, although they do still appear in the game's secret final levels. I don't know, Colleen, would you have liked this game more if you played as a dragonfly the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it.
No question.
Like that's a Colleen ass game right there. A
Right?
magic dragonfly shooting shit.
Yeah. Just flying around as a dragonfly. That would have been awesome.
And speaking of secret levels, when a Pilot Wings player successfully lands on moving platforms, they are taken to a hidden bonus stage. Mike, you said you got some of these, right?
I got one of these by accident, and it was a big change in this game to me. Since so much of the tone of this is fairly serious, like you're doing flight training stuff, and then the only one that I got was off of skydiving, I think,
Okay.
where you are now a penguin jumping into a pool. And what I do appreciate about this is to cut to the chase, I am not good at this game. And I really hit a level where it's like, I don't know how to advance further. If you get the bonus, because you're trying to get a certain number of points, if you get the bonus, it's like 100 points extra plus whatever you get on that, when you're only needing like 220 points or something. So I advanced entirely because I managed to get into the bonus, and just that gives such a big point bonus. Like it actually turns out this is how speedrunners speedrun this, is you just get those because it just gives you massive points, and then you don't have to play as many regular levels.
So basically, how you beat me in our sin punishment competition, you weren't actually the better player. You just got that one crazy bonus to beat me.
Yeah, it's like that, which still counts.
So, Mike, you've made reference multiple times. It's in the game. Yeah, EA Sports. Mike, you've made reference multiple times to this online study of someone having a open community vote on what they consider to be a Mario game. And it's like some people consider there to only be like 20 true Mario games, and some people would literally say that there are hundreds. Did Pilot Wings ever come up? Do you recall?
I don't remember if it did. Like, I was meaning to go check that with something we'll talk about later this episode.
Oh, right, because of a cameo in the next game we're going to talk about. But I think I might have discovered something, because I think there's an academic argument that this should be considered, or at least in the conversation, for what makes a Mario game. Because would you both back me up? The penguin is the Mario penguin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You got the blue, you've got the white belly, you've got the it's Shigeru Miyamoto worked on both.
Yeah, but then at that point we also have to start getting, I think if it's based off of any shared characters, then I think like Link's Awakening is now a Mario game.
Well, yeah.
Which therefore would make all of them Mario games, because now anything in a Zelda game, in that Zelda game, isn't a Mario game. And then this is chaos.
Colleen and I used to talk about that all the time when we watch daytime television. It's like the one show theory. It's like, well, there's that actor who played the other character, so now Supernatural and This Is Us, or Gilmore Girls and This Is Us, same universe.
Yeah, Supernatural and Gilmore Girls.
Well, I mean, you've got the Saint Elsewhere Tommyverse, where it's because that show was in. There's a thing where that show is really in like the mind of an autistic kid.
Yeah.
But then that show crossed over with other shows.
Oh, so it implied that other shows were imagined.
Yeah, and then you can expand that out, and there's a massive number of things in there. Because you can get to like Batman, because you get to Addams Family by way of Batman. I know that like the old Adam West Batman and the Addams Family are both in there, because those crossed over, and I forget which one of those is the one that's closer to the Elsewhere verse.
I think they did that with, I think it was Bob Newhart like he had two different shows, and I think they ended like, and they're like he had a show and it ended, and then he had a second show and he ended, and the way they concluded the second show was having him wake up in the bedroom of the first show next to the wife of the first show. That was the weirdest dream ever.
Oh, that's where that trope came from.
That's definitely where, yeah, that's definitely one of the pioneering ones on that, or milestone ones on it.
Well, you know what's actually about Pilot Wings? Stay on topic, Mike. You're gonna get a kick out of this, Colleen, because you're both like into classic rock, I think.
Yeah.
So when Pink Floyd founding member Roger Waters remade his iconic album Dark Side of the Moon, he made the controversial decision to include spoken word narration for the instrumental tracks. For track three's On the Run, he reads aloud a note he scribbled down about a nightmare he had about his anxieties in keeping up with the endless rat race of human life. And he described the nightmare as saying it all boiled down and expanded out and up into a sort of Pilot Wings video game over a circus.
That's a legit nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was just like, what a weird like cultural touchstone, because Dark Side of the Moon, one of the biggest albums of all time. And the remake of it, Pilot Wings universe. Like, what? Well, so before we get into the joy pros and joy cons of Pilot Wings on the SNES, what is our history with this game and how far do we each get? So, Colleen, you want to start because it's going to be fast, I think.
Yeah, for the Super Nintendo one, 5 minutes ago.
It was more. Everyone relax. She tried each vehicle. Okay,
Yeah.
she got a feel for it. Her
Mhm.
her Nintendo or NintenDON'T is still going to be valid. But you said you had an SNES as a child.
Uh, yes, but I got it at the end of its life, so I had like 5 games for it total, and then it was like, oh yeah, N64 and PS1 was coming out, and so I was like, yeah, okay,
Yeah, time to move on.
yeah.
Mike, what about you?
So this was a game that I don't think I'd ever heard of before we were going to do this.
Oh,
Um, and it did not go great.
okay.
It really varies around on kind of what vehicles you're or not even vehicles if you're skydiving, whatever, what modes you're having to deal with. And so part of this is it's this whole flight club thing that we're going to break rules and talk about. And as you're going through trainers. And so each trainer you're having to go through, get a certain number of points in one go off of like three different things. I was able to get the A class license from the first trainer. I was able to get the B class license from the second trainer. They are not great teachers because it's things like make sure the wings don't hit the ground. And it's like, I understand that. I would like to know how to make that happen, but I get don't crash. That's not helpful.
I mean, Colleen needed that advice, so it's valid.
Yeah.
And then I got to the third trainer, Lance, who's a total jerk and not helpful.
He like berates you.
Yeah, it's a lot of just like, do you want to quit? Whereas at least with the previous one, I at least was getting stuff from her where it's like, well, I'm not going to judge you by appearance. I guess you did okay, which is
Yeah, because you're like ugly.
I was basically being negged by the second trainer. And then, but yeah, Lance was a lot of just like, do you want to give up? And it's like, I mean, yeah.
You're making me want to.
Yeah. And I think that's because I think that might have been the first one with the hang glider. And like, I still don't know what I was supposed to do with that hang glider. Like, it was like, do this and then land. I'm like, I don't know where.
It's tough. It's very opaque.
Yeah. It's like, I do not know what I'm supposed to do with that. And that is where we ended.
Well, so speaking of like the NPCs kind of giving you attitude, did you get to a helicopter mission?
No, I did not.
Because Colleen and I were having a lot of fun before the helicopter missions. It's actually kind of thrilling because, they are the end of each game. Because this game, I was very surprised to discover this game had a new game plus mode and it has a whole new title screen, Pilot Wings Expert. And now you go back through the whole game again, but with adverse weather conditions. So
Oh wow.
wind and snow. And it's like it's not really different enough, I think. Like the wind, you don't really feel it that much. The slippery runways don't really change that much of the gameplay. But so both the main game and the new game plus mode, the final mission, you are interrupted. Your flight lessons are interrupted by a political emergency. There are people being held hostage, and you need to do a helicopter rescue mission. And you have to accept the mission. They say, "Will you do it?" And there's like yes, and there's no. And Colleen, what happens if you click no? I'm not going to do it.
Calls you a coward, and it tells you like and asks you again. And then like the option is you should do it. I'm only trained for motorcycles.
Yeah, one of the options is, "Hey, NPC, you go rescue him," and it says, "I'm only trained for motorcycles."
As a person in a flight club.
Yes, yes, blatantly lying.
Yeah.
But by abusing the rewind feature, I am very proud to say that I did beat this game.
Nintendo!
Family computer.
What is that sound supposed to be?
You know, it's actually very few people ask. It is a combination of Yoshi from Yoshi Nintendo 64 announcing the game, and then a Japanese commercial.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the way, in the comments, if you know where that came from, let me know because I want to give credit. I love the sound effect. And so I want to shout out whoever designed it because I can't find it who actually made it. It was just on one of those soundboard websites, but there was nothing credited. So yeah, the game was very, very challenging, even with rewinding, but I did beat the game and then beat Pilotwings Expert. So if I can say what I liked about this game, first and foremost, I think the graphics have aged surprisingly well. Several of the vehicles orient the camera directly above the player, looking down at the ground, and the sense of height you get from Pilotwings on the Super Nintendo is really impressive. In fact, Colleen, you kind of had a reaction. She was trying the skydiving mission, and it's. Can you describe it for us? Because it starts in kind of a cool way.
Yeah, you get lifted up on the ladder, and I was like commenting, "Oh, that's a very interesting way to get up there," and it just dropped me at that point. And trying to control it, like once you're dropped, is
Yeah, you're hanging from the helicopter, and the helicopter's off camera. You hear it, and you just see the rope ladder dangling, and you're gripping onto it. And the runway and the little airport and the surrounding buildings are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I kind of got a little bit of vertigo. Like, I really felt like, the fact that a game this old gave me that visceral reaction, I think is really cool.
Bit of an uncool move. They start the timer as you're being lifted up, though.
That's true.
yeah.
It's odd because, I mean, yeah, why not just start it once you start falling? Um, and this perspective of looking down is also the same perspective of the helicopter levels. So you have to dodge enemy fire, which is being launched up at you from these gun turrets. And I don't know about you, Colleen, but like the way that those shots were whipping towards us, it felt really kinetic and kind of scary.
Yeah, like I mean, there were the times where it's like the two crossed, and it's like, how did I survive that?
Yeah. And it's got a good sense of like momentum and like speed as it's rocketing up towards you. And
Mhm.
you win those by taking out the enemy defenses and landing safely on a helipad to rescue the hostages. So I don't know. I mean, I think it was one of the most fun parts of the game. So I'm kind of bummed that a lot of people have never gotten to try it. I'm not normally a fan of simulation games, but I think this one strikes a good balance between like handling realistically but not being overly complicated. During the pandemic, my dad was really excited to download Train Sim World on Game Pass. He could not get the train to move forward. So I downloaded the game. I was like, "I'll teach you, old man." I downloaded the whole game, booted it up, could not figure out how to make the train move forward.
Did you try turning it off and on again?
We did. We did, Mike.
There's been a number of like the train sims where it's like you have to buy a train operating manual in real life to know what to do because it doesn't teach you, and you're like, I got no clue, and it's like it's working just like a real train. So
But so, Mike, you spent a bit more time with this one, and you said this game is kind of serious and it seems like it's trying to be realistic. Was that a plus or a minus in your book?
I think it was a plus. Like I kind of like that. Like even with starting from the manual, it does this whole like where this flight club and all this kind of stuff, and has background to the different vehicles slash skydiving. It's not well, I mean, it's not a vehicle, but I don't know how to group that.
We're all human vehicles.
Yeah, and then it just kind of so it feels like it has this sort of unified. It has a world building sense to it that even without having reached like the helicopter stuff fits into that as well. So like I do kind of appreciate that approach to it. It makes this feel like a fleshed out thing, and it kind of helps with the ambition of this, since so much of the game is just trying to make this work. Like it is impressive that an SNES is doing all that it is.
Yeah, I think the 3D graphics work surprisingly well. Like, I feel like I've played games on more powerful hardware that didn't work as nice as this.
I'd say everything except the rocket belt, because there's a lot of me just playing that being like, how did I not go through that this time? Because those rings,
Yeah,
how they exist or I guess because it's trying to simulate 3D but not being 3D.
except for the fact that it's the same way in the N64 3D one.
Kind of.
I didn't have that same problem with that. With this, it was very much like I went through the center of that. I thought it became very frustrating, possibly because that was, of the things I dealt with, that was the one I could maneuver and control the best.
For those who haven't tried the game, Colleen and Mike are talking about the Rocket Belts missions. You're trying to fly through these rings, and exactly where the ring stops or starts is kind of hard to gauge. But I'm with Colleen, though. I also had problems on the N64 version with like the targets.
Yeah, like I'd be getting close and then like overshoot it somehow, and then yeah.
Yeah. I just think though, like the game had pretty catchy music. I thought it kind of had a nice little, bop to it. And I think that Nintendo Switch Online might be the best way to play this game because the ability to rewind and to correct a mistake makes it such a less frustrating game. And it is kind of one of those games where the challenge of landing is the point. You're kind of removing some of the point of the game itself by rewinding. It's almost like cheating on like a sports game. We're kind of in that zone.
I think it does fix actually one of the things that I have as a problem with this game.
Okay, so should we transition to the Joy Cons? Go for it.
Or I'll just add this where it fits in, which is that since on each of these you're trying to hit a certain number of points, you only get one try per mode. And so if you say you do well on the rocket belt and you do well in the skydiving, and then you crash the plane, you have to redo everything. Which is a thing that when we get to Pilotwings 64, it fixed that. So I really wish I could have just been going, okay, I'm redoing the worst one, and I will keep redoing the worst one until I have a good enough score.
Yeah, what you're referring to is that you have to clear multiple vehicle missions in a row to get to the next level or to advance in the game. And there's no real reason to do it that way other than it artificially recreates longevity. You're making players take longer to work through the game because they have to replay levels they could easily do again to get to the harder level later. Yeah, this was probably pretty rough, Mike. I was playing it thinking like, well, I'm not normally a fan of games where the whole point is that they're hard to control, but for this genre, I think it makes total sense because like a plane should feel fragile and wobbly and like it makes landing exciting, right? And when you're falling from the skydiving and you're getting kind of dizzy as like the world spins around you, I really think that this was an impressive simulation of flight for such limited hardware. Is there anything else, Colleen, you liked about the game before we get to the negatives?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I agree with you. Like, just playing it was like, to me, it felt a lot more like the playing the 3D N64 one than I ever expected. That it was like, okay, this is actually kind of legit, and giving that perspective.
I think anyone would be forgiven for assuming that the game wouldn't be 3D on Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
Like, oh, it'll be. I actually, honestly, I thought it was going to be like top down or side view or
yeah.
something, but like
And
yeah,
when you had me start, I started on the
helicopter.
helicopter level, which was that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I was like, okay, and then I'm like, oh wait, there's different views for each of the vehicles.
it's impressive for a '90s 16-bit game. Mike, it ain't perfect though. You've had some issues. What are the Joy Cons?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest parts kind of touched upon were depth perception was very frustrating with the rocket belt specifically. I actually was good with the others for the most part. I think it doesn't communicate what you need to be doing great sometimes. Being told I landed the hang glider out of the area I'm supposed to land, and I'm like, I don't know where that area is. I would love to be told.
Mhm.
And just really wishing I could redo those independent parts. Like it has such this impressive core to it, but a lot of sort of the more quality of life houses really functioning as a game bits it struggles with. And if it allowed a bit more of a sandboxy bit of kind of fly around or something, I think that could get around it. But everything's so tightly centered around the missions. Although the bonus levels being massive points is actually a great shot in the arm, because that did become if I get the bonus, I can clear this. I just have to get like one bonus for that to work.
Yeah, we didn't mention it. The bonus games that you get for landing on really difficult moving targets is the playing as a pool, excuse me, a penguin high diving into a pool. And then there's another one where you have it's kind of like the Red Bull Flutog. I don't know if you guys know that, like that event
Yeah.
where they tried the hang gliders into the bay. So you're playing as like this person with wings bouncing from trampoline to trampoline, and then the other one is the bird suit, where you're just kind of trying to get as deep into the ocean as possible, a la The Awakening. But, so I don't know. I didn't like the hang glider. I just did not like the hang glider because the only mechanic to gain altitude in hang gliding is you have to go through these thermal currents. And I had a really hard time like knowing where the current would pick me and lift me. And I just don't think I ever had fun hang gliding in this game. And that'll be a theme for our next next part as well.
I think I did all right with the hang gliding.
You were all right with the hang
I
gliding?
was all right with the hang gliding. I was not okay with the hang landing.
Hang crashing though, you aced it.
Oh, perfect. It's real fun where it's like, I got the advice land on the land at one point from Lance. And it was like, thank you for that. I'm glad you're here to tell me this.
It's just the entire land, that's the landing zone. And then you land and you're outside the landing zone.
I mean, I guess were you landing in water a lot or something?
Not a lot. And I mean, I'm not going to say landing in water either. That was crashing in water.
That's true. Um, I just I feel like this game could have had a really basic two-player mode where like you're competing for the high score and just passing the controller back and forth. You can do that with Nintendo Switch Online like artificially, but I think it would have been because it's so score based, it would have been nice to have some kind of competitive aspect to it. Otherwise, I don't think I'm ever really going to revisit this one. I don't know about you, Mike, but like I kind of feel like, well, I see what this is doing, but I don't know if I'd come back to it. What about you?
I feel like I like the part where I stopped pretty much was when I'm like, I can tell that I don't know enough what I need to do to get beyond this, and it's not like this would take a large amount of practice for me to get good enough to get 3 good runs out of this in 3 vehicles to advance.
It's a big ask. It really is. Well, so I think that kind of covers the Joy Pros and Joy Cons. Do we have any other thoughts about Pilotwings on the Super Nintendo before we go to our second and final game of the evening?
I will say I think it's utterly ridiculous that the speed run for this is like 20 minutes.
Wow. That
Wow.
seems fast.
Yeah.
I mean, the hang gliding missions alone, you're up there for a couple minutes just kind of spinning.
That's partially why, because I'd watched one by Lucha Gym, which is actually it's the second place speed run at like 23 minutes from, but it was like done within the last few months. A huge amount of it is using those bonus levels. You specifically get those bonus levels, and that as soon as you hit the points, it advances you, so you don't have to do all of them.
Oh, okay, right. Because the bonus levels, if you trigger them, is just adding. I guess they're bonus, actually. That's
Yeah.
that's why they're called that, huh?
Yeah, they're like it's 100 points plus what you get in them. So they're super, super useful if you're trying to just be like, I just want to see more of this game. And like I sort of switched to targeting the moving platforms to get the bonus, and it turned out to be like really worth it.
That's cool. Let's move on to our second game, Pilotwings 64, released for the N64 in 1996. as described on Nintendo Switch Online? Do you have what it takes to be crowned an ace pilot? Take on the role of a young pilot taking to the wild blue yonder with dreams of receiving your pilot's licenses and aviator's badges. To fulfill your dream, you must successfully operate 3 vehicles, a hang glider, a rocket belt, and a gyrocopter, and complete the flight tests for each class. But that's not enough to satisfy a true ace pilot. Skydiving and other challenges await. Challenges that may be familiar to those who played the Pilotwings games for the Super NES console. And also Colleen. The game features 6 unique pilots of exceptional skill. Do you have what it takes to soar the skies of the world with them, master all of the vehicles and classes, and be crowned an ace pilot? Question mark, exclamation point. Let's take a look at the box art, since that was often people's first impressions. We have the Japanese box of Pilotwings, which has the characters, the pilot characters, kind of all standing shoulder to shoulder on the ground with a hang glider above them. Camera's kind of an upward angle. North American box art, also camera on the ground looking up, as we have our pilots kind of getting ready for takeoff. I don't know, Colleen, so you had this game, right?
Yeah.
And does this box ring a bell?
As I said before, I could have sworn that it was just the cloud things, but I'd probably go and look through the box art the first time opening it.
Mike, this is bad, right? The North American one?
I mean, I'm not really taken with either of them. I honestly would think the American one is a bit better.
I would agree.
More dynamic. Okay.
And I think it's a bit more dynamic, and like the thing that flies is much more prominent. And as much as it makes this point about like 6 unique characters, which there's 3 unique characters really.
Right.
They have a male and a female of each set of attributes as far as like flying abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, the executive order, they're all female characters. Sorry, continue.
Yeah.
I mean, this is set in Japan, so I don't think that applies.
True.
But like there's a little bit of that factors in how things work, but unlike the SNES one that really feels like there's like an actual like arc to this, what's going on, I really don't know what's going on with this as much with the pilots you can choose. Like there's not like here's the goal kind of thing to it in a fundamental, like in that overarching way, in the same way that you're like, oh, you're training to be a pilot, working your way up. This kind of doesn't connect to that, which I think even leads to, I guess, weird things, because I was used to like the trainer thing, the instructors from the first game, that in this one, like in the manual, they do a Q&A and it's the pilots asking questions that I'm like, you guys should know you're in the game. Which does also include like, are there any hidden levels? And the answer is just, that's a good question.
So my issue with the box art is that the plane in Pilotwings 64, or I should say the plane from the Super Nintendo version, has been replaced with a gyrocopter, or Eurocopter if you fill it with lamb and special sauce. And that's an obscure vehicle already, and I just feel like to position it on the ground facing away from the customer, it's almost hard to read what that vehicle even is. Am I alone in that?
I thought it's clear.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I you may not know it's called a gyrocopter, but even if you get to like, it looks,
Yeah.
you could easily mistake it for a helicopter, for example.
I guess so.
And the manual makes some points about the distinction of how it's not one. I think mostly that it does not have the ability to hover.
Yeah. I don't know. But Colleen, any other opinions on the box art?
Yeah, I'd agree with Mike that I think the American one is a little bit better. Like they were at least going for something that would maybe make you excited to play. Action oriented. You got, the vehicle at the center, and like you got them charging towards it, as opposed to just standing around.
Yeah.
On the Japanese one, you see all 6 pilots. Who's
in the sky?
glider?
Yes. Yeah. I zoomed in to see if there was like some hidden secret character, but like you can see there's a person. So there actually are NPCs in Pilotwings 64 though. Like, so you can find hang gliders around like Little States, one of the best level, let's be honest.
Yes.
And if you get up close, it's just like a little NPC. So I got some trivia for you guys, developed and published by Nintendo. This game was directed by Makoto Wada, who also directed Super Punch-Out from Season 2, and the mini games from Pokemon Stadium for one of our future episodes. There are 6 characters, as Mike and Colleen have already mentioned, and they are all named after what, lady and gentleman?
Birds.
Birds.
Yeah, I'd like to take issue with one of those.
Well, just so for our listeners to know, lark, kiwi, goose, ibis, hawk, and robin. What's wrong, Mike?
Kiwis don't fly.
It
Still a bird?
still is a bird.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
weird choice on that.
Yeah.
Personally, I went with Goose because it felt correct to watch Goose be in many horrible crashes.
Is that a Top Gun joke?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So the character of Goose was named after Top Gun. That's why his colors are all kind of patriotic, red, white, and blues. Lark's design is actually just the character of Nestor, who was the mascot for Nintendo Power Magazine for many years, and the star of the In Magazine comic Howard and Nestor. The story depicts him as an arrogant gamer who refuses Howard's sage advice and suffers comical in-game deaths as a result. And then
Wait,
finally, there's
Nintendo Power had a gaming themed Goofus and Gallant.
yes,
That's amazing.
isn't that great?
Can I just point out that he literally crossed out his name spelled correctly to write his name spelled correctly?
But bigger.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
the thing, the joke I think they're going for.
Oh, okay.
And also shows he's a bad boy. He's graffitiing. So then Robin. Robin is described in the manual as being one of the prettiest pilots around. And her original bird name was changed when the game was ported to North America because it was considered too vulgar. Any guesses as to what her original name was?
No.
What color are her feet?
Colleen's like, I'm not getting canceled.
No,
What color are her feet?
Yes.
Like, what? What color are her feet?
Yeah, are they blue?
I think Mike is guessing the blue-footed boobies.
Yeah.
Hooter. It was Hooter. Keep it classy, you two. Jeez.
I think mine is classier than that one.
Yeah, I would agree.
Thank you.
Plus, her pants are blue.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, they definitely made a choice on that one because it was like I was going through. It's like here are the characters. Like they really put this one up to 11 here. Or I guess
Yeah.
the age set the age to 99. I guess would be.
In terms of dead or alive.
Yeah.
Trying to compete with Laura Croft.
Yeah.
So, Pilotwings 64's most famous level is called Little States, which is a roughly 2-scale recreation of North America, complete with landmarks such as the Empire State Building, the Golden Gate Bridge, and the St. Louis Arch. One of the hang glider missions challenges you to snap a picture of Missy, which most players assume is a reference to Nessie, the Loch Ness monster. But I would like to posit that this was actually intended to be a reference to Peppy, which is a cryptid said to live in the waters of Lake Pepin, Minnesota. The Mississippi River runs through that body of water, so it makes a lot more sense geographically. I don't know, Mike, what do you think?
I knew that there's a hang glider thing for this, and I just didn't figure out where on the map it is. Because I mean, there's stories of these kind of lake monsters really throughout the U.S. Like there's Champ in Lake Champlain. So like there's a lot of them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think Champ's probably America's best known lake monster.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What? You've heard of Champ too, Colleen?
I've heard of Champ.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of Peppy.
Yeah, Champ. America's Mocha
What? Did you just have a stroke? What did you just say?
Mocha although that one's less of a plesiosaur and possibly more like a brontosaurus, but it's a lake monster in Africa.
Wow, you guys were ready for this one. I wasn't ready for your responses.
I'm really up on my cryptids for some reason.
Yeah. I mean, you really didn't expect me to know some cryptids?
No, in hindsight, joke's on me. Well, so the most infamous landmark you can visit in this game is Mount Rushmore. And it contains one of 3D gaming's earliest Easter eggs. Colleen, can you talk to this one? Because I believe you did this one as a child.
Oh, yes.
So talk to us about Mount Rushmore in this game. What's the little...
So it's Mount Rushmore, and then like one of the heads is replaced with Mario's.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, and if you shoot a missile at its nose, was it 3?
3 times.
Okay.
3 times.
Yeah, if you shoot the missile 3 times at its nose, it turns into Wario.
Which to me is like a real like kind of killing joke sort of implication. Like Mario is just 3 missiles away from Breaking Bad.
I mean, aren't we all?
They're two sides of the same coin. Have you ever seen Mario and Wario in the same room?
Yes, we did Mario Party last episode.
Yeah.
It also implies that Wario can be reformed through tough love because he's just 3 missiles away from getting back on the right track. So
The game where they switch like alignments.
that'd be interesting. That
Yeah.
would be neat, actually. I'd be into that. So before we get into the joy pros and joy cons of Pilotwings 64, what is our history with this game and how far did we each get? Mike, can we start with you?
Yeah. So my history with this was playing this after Pilotwings, having never heard of them before. And I got through the training, and I think I got through a full round, like the full first level, and then it got a little bit hit or miss. The difficulty spikes on this super quickly. So I think I'll go into detail on this only because it summarizes how this went. Is the hang gliding starts off with just like some basic landing stuff of like fly by this factory and ideally don't catch on fire, because that's a terrifying scream that I didn't know would happen.
Yes.
But it's like, fly by that and land. It's like, okay, relatively straightforward. The next thing you have to do is to go off of a cliff, go straight down through a ravine, and then manage to not hit the wall at the end, get out of there, and then still have a good landing. And I struggled to just have good landings without the vertical drop, ravine, cliff part of this. So that is about where I kind of stopped.
So you NintenDON'T.
Not at all.
Colleen, you had this as a kid and you said you unlocked everything?
Yep.
So talk to me about that. Like, were you naturally good at it?
The story is that when the year that it was released, my grandmother pre-ordered it for me, like through because it was like, I think it was through like the Sears catalog or something. So it was already set and already ordered and set to be delivered, and it was going to be like my present from it. Then my report card came out. And so it was taken away before Christmas ever happened. So instead of being delivered to me and me getting to play the games, it just stayed at our grandmother's house because she couldn't return it. So, and it came with it was like one of the boxes that came with only 2 games, and it was Super Mario 64 and Pilotwings.
Those are the only 2 games available at launch.
Yeah. So the thing was, I went to my grandmother's often, but not often enough that I could keep up with everything that was like, because Super Mario kind of had a story when you had the worlds and everything. I'd have big gaps. So it was like, I have no idea what's going on. I don't remember what I was doing. But Pilotwings is just fun to mess around with. So on the times where I didn't get, want to go to Blockbuster to rent a game, I'd be playing Pilotwings like nonstop.
Awesome. So you unlocked everything. So you did beat this game back in the day?
Yeah.
Nintendo! Family computer.
You get the sound effect, Colleen. Congratulations.
And then, but here the thing is, like, even after I beat it all, I started setting my own challenges.
I did that too.
Did you ever land the gyrocopter inside the barn?
In the barn?
Uh-huh.
I did not know that was possible. So
Yeah.
I borrowed this game from somebody as a kid, and my brothers and we loved the Little States level. It's this roughly, like I said, to scale recreation of the whole United States, and the island is the shape of like North America. And so what we would do is we would fly as high as possible and wait till we ran out of fuel, and then challenge each other to make the best emergency landing. So if you could like land on a building with a flat enough roof, that was worth extra points. If you landed on a city street, if you landed in the city itself.
Central Park.
Central Park. Yes, exactly. So this game though, replaying it for this podcast, very challenging because Nintendo 64 on the Nintendo Switch Online does not have a rewind feature. So you can save state, but you cannot rewind at the touch of a button. So I had to abuse the save state. It was like, okay, took that turn. If I did a turn well, save the game. Flied through a ring, save the game. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys watch Rick and Morty, like the thing where he gets to reset himself, the remote control to reset himself. That's how I Nintendo did beat this really difficult game.
Nintendo! Family computer.
When you were a kid, did you unlock the open world little states?
Are you referring to the Birdman suit?
No, like when you complete it, like you could play any of the vehicles in an open world one.
Yeah, so that's the Birdman. So what Colleen's referring to is that you can find these stars hidden throughout the game. Every level has one. Every island has a secret star, and it will transform you into the bird. And it's fully open world, and there's no gas, there's no fuel, there's no goals. And apparently, a lot of people just like to vibe out with it and just kind of explore. Is that how you would play it, Colleen?
Yeah, like after I unlocked the free roam little America, and like I would just choose a gyrocopter and fly around and like try to land in barns and things like that.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see the appeal on that because it was such a cool level that I was just going into one of the missions and just ignoring it and exploring stuff so long as I had fuel, just to sort of see how much is in there, because I wasn't expecting it to be as fleshed out as it is. Like there are telescopes northeast of LA that I think might be Mount Wilson, could be something else, but that seems like the best bet.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that just if you just get close enough to Florida, you see the shuttle launch.
Yeah. And it's impressive. Like it's filled, the whole area fills with like white smoke and it rumbles up.
Yeah, and like it did that to me during like one of the missions, and I thought I had presumed it was synced up to that until I was exploring and just kind of stumbled upon that. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I mean, I can sort of navigate where I am and recognize I'm pretty sure that is this thing.
Yeah.
Through a chunk of that, of the Grand Canyon, figuring out a bunch of the major cities. Of Seattle's got the Space Needle, New York has Empire State Building and Central Park and the World Trade Center. DC's pretty fleshed out.
And the cities have the sound of traffic. Like you hear cars honking and it's kind of echoey. Do either of you know the trick, the New York, Los Angeles warp?
I don't think I found that. No.
There is a building in both New York and Los Angeles, and if you fly into the building and then out the other side, you will instantly go from New York to LA and vice versa. And what's really cool is that like there's not a lick of loading screen to it. It's seamless. So it's really kind of feels like a magic trick. You're like, wait, this isn't where I am. This isn't where I came in. And there's also like, some maps have like these underground grotto, like kind of Disney Channel, not Disney Channel, like Disneyland kind of ride looking places to explore. And what I love about this is that even in some modern games, you'd have all these different areas, but they would only be accessible to certain vehicles and during certain missions. But this one, there's nothing stopping you from flying the gyrocopter into the subterranean tunnel, except for the walls, I guess, would stop you. But like it's truly open world, and I think it's impressive.
I'd make my own challenges, and like I want to get in there, or like I want to get in the barn. Let's see if I can do it, and like try it until I get it.
That's fun. That's really fun.
There's an extra story for that, like Mike pointing out the shuttle launch, because my grandfather was one of the engineers that designed the main engines of the space shuttle.
Whoa.
And it's the same, and it's the grandfather that was the husband of the grandmother that I referenced that pre-ordered it. And he had died the January of that year.
Wow.
So it was like the first Christmas without him and everything, the first thing. And I'm like, and I'm playing this to get to that, like it's probably not that Christmas that I got to it, but like sometime in like early 97. and flying around and watching the shuttle take off.
Yeah, and Grandpa was there for a second. Like,
Yeah.
wow, Colleen,
Because
breaking my heart with these stories. Stop it.
it was in the house that, like, I mean, right next to the room that was like my little den area for it was his room, because he had breathing in so much rocket fuel exhaust destroyed his lungs. So
Really?
yeah.
Whoa.
So he was on oxygen for like as long as I can remember. He had to have his own room with his own stuff set up, and like it was all decorated with all the shuttle stuff, all the photos, all the awards and everything. So yeah.
It's funny I didn't know that, because as you might remember, my dad, worked for JPL for the longest time.
Mhm.
I remember like our dads got along, but I never knew the kind of space exploration connection. And then here's Mike,
I'm surprised I never told you that.
and then Mike's exploring the stars all the time with super telescopes. Mike, what's the furthest thing out you've ever seen in space?
Technically, I've seen a quasar through Mount Wilson. However, the problem with that is a quasar, which is a very distant galaxy, just looks like a star. So we pointed that telescope. I don't know who was in charge of putting this on the target list for that night. Looked through the telescope and was like, well, one of these things is just like a boring star, and the other one is a quasar that is well beyond our galaxy, and we don't know which of the two is which.
Also, quasar through Mount Wilson, great name for a drink. I'm just gonna say.
Yeah, unfortunately, that drink requires Quaaludes, and they stopped making those in the 70s.
Yeah. I actually have my grandfather's Silver Snoopy Award. Do you know what those are?
Is that something with aviation or flying?
It was specifically like for astronauts to award to the engineers that basically the quote was that kept their asses alive up in space.
Wow.
And getting to space. So he had gotten it, and and so I inherited it afterwards. But yeah, he had gotten it, and it was supposed to come with a trip to Florida to watch the shuttle take off. But then the Challenger explosion happened.
I just cover that with my students. Yeah.
Yeah, and it put a hold on the shuttle program until they investigated. And by the time it was resumed, his health had deteriorated so much that he couldn't make the flight out there.
But he still accomplished, contributing to the project.
Yeah. And he died on the 10-year anniversary of the Challenger explosion.
Wow. Like the fates are so entwined.
Right? Like
that's wild.
Yeah.
I feel like it relates kind of to innovation and technology and stuff. Like this game, I think it's interesting that you're having such a strong emotional connection to it, because do you guys think this game looks good and is impressive graphically? I feel like it is.
Yeah, I mean,
no, it's just me.
It's very interesting design that you get used to.
I think the draw distance is really impressive.
Yes, and the landscapes are.
There's PS2 games with a lot more pop-up, and they achieved this through two tricks. Paradigm Simulations made flight sims before this game, and so they used MIP mapping, which I think Mike was mentioning earlier with the whole cryptid thing. A MIP map is where you render objects in the distance using simpler shapes, and as you get closer to it, render it with more complicated and more detailed shapes. But they do it so smoothly you don't really notice the model model changing as you get closer. And then also Z scaling, which uses the player's perspective to determine which side of an object to render. Most 3D games are rendering the whole polygon. This one is only rendering what you can see.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't really see through the cracks that much. I think there's a certain kind of brownness to the game that hasn't aged the best, but I don't know. It's an open world game.
Yeah, no, so I'm saying the landscapes, I think, were the people so much, not so much.
Yeah, I think the character design does not work well for me, and I kind of wish that felt a little bit more, lack of a better word, grounded. I think they feel a bit too much like caricatures.
Yeah. That being said, if they had the choice between making the landscape rendered amazingly or the people designed amazingly, I'm glad they went with the landscape.
Yeah, I just kind of wish that the style was a little bit different on the characters. Not like I'm not expecting realistic. I just the way they stylized them did not work for me.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that it was released like at the same time as Mario 64 because the characters look so much more fluid in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can just say two more things I like about it, I think swapping out the gyrocopter for the helicopter or the plane was a good idea because you still have the takeoff and landing mechanics, which are fun, but you can also, hover in place because it's also a helicopter kind of. And this is the only vehicle that has weapons. You can shoot missiles. You have an unlimited amount of missiles, although there can only be two on the screen at a time, as Mike mentioned. But this is the only vehicle that has combat. You can fight a giant kaiju version of the character Hawk. Mike,
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing you didn't get this far.
Oh, no, I did.
Oh, okay. Did you take down Mecha Hawk?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because like, no, he like grunts
Yeah.
when you missile him. And I think am I alone in saying the human cannonball levels were pretty fun?
Yeah. I'm surprised I remembered like where to aim.
Colleen was sinking bullseyes like nobody's business. It was really wild.
It was like I remember where to aim this.
I think I wish that there was a little bit more precision to those to the numbers that it gives.
So can you describe it for our listeners, Mike? How does the cannonball work?
Yeah, so I think this is this standard sort of like there's a bunch of games that have done something of this of you are trying to hit targets, and so you're controlling your direction and your altitude and your power. And pretty much on these, once you fire, they are on that trajectory. There's nothing you can do to change it. And so you get 3 shots per target. And that does help just in trying to sort of refine where you're aiming. Like I appreciate that you can use the actual like values for your direction, for your altitude, not just where's the crosshair go.
Yeah. Yeah, you have the meter to see your exact angle of fire. And it's really funny because like, you're shooting the player characters for miles across the landscape. It's really humorous. And like you said, there's nothing you can do but just, take the wheel, watch to see once you fired where you're gonna land. And when you boof it, it's really comical. Like I overshot and landed on the other side of the island entirely. Colleen wedged herself perfectly between a canyon wall and a canyon floor.
Yep.
Like
I got the corner.
she hit the exact corner, like the office style, like the wallpaper or the screensaver, I mean. And we tried for the first time for this podcast, pass the controller multiplayer. So PSA for everybody, because I don't think a lot of people know you can do this. You can boot up a single player Nintendo 64 game with 3 friends, and then at the touch of a button, whoever started the session can pass the controller online from one person to another. What'd you say, Colleen?
4 friends. There's a 4th player spot.
Yeah. So that'd be 4 total.
Yeah.
I think. But so that's how we played this.
No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's fine.
You and 3 others.
You were just testing me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
But I thought this was fun competing with you folk trying to get the best target. If we can kind of transition to the Joy-Cons, it's unfortunate this has to be unlocked. Like Nintendo has once again forgotten about the SP mode. One day I'll get those back. Colleen, do you even know what SP mode means?
No.
For the Super Nintendo and Nintendo games, and I think maybe a couple of Game Boy games, they have a special mode where it's like as if you bought the cartridge used and some kid before you unlocked all the cool stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that would be really helpful for this game. Because then Mike wouldn't have to unlock Cannonball or be playing with me. He could just, like, why not? It costs them nothing. Okay, look, Nintendo, I know you're listening. You can go into my account, take the data from my save files, just use that, okay? You don't even have to unlock it yourself. It annoys me so much. So Colleen, was this game perfect for you? Like,
it wasn't perfect for me, but it was the one that I could play. So it was one of those things where it's like you made your own fun, you beat it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to get all the highest scores that I can't, unlock everything with the highest medal. And then, then once you finish that, make your own fun in the open world.
I'm not surprised you like it for that reason, because flashback to our childhood, Colleen and I used to hang out in her backyard and play Alien versus Predator action figures.
Yeah.
And Colleen had a Predator that was decapitated. And so she put a screw inside the decapitated head so that we could use magnets to create a realistic decapitation motion. I don't know if you remember this, Colleen.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the intention. The intention was, oh, his head came off. Let me try to reattach it. And I had just gotten a tool set from it, but the screw wasn't long enough, so he just remained decapitated.
Yeah.
And then I had eventually saved up and got a new version of him.
I remember that.
So he was always the first casualty.
The casualty one, yeah, the battle damage one. But Pilotwings is kind of like a playground. It's like these huge open areas, make your own fun. So someone like you who's creative and imaginative, you're gonna have fun with that.
Yeah.
Mike, anything else before we move on to the Joy-Cons for this game? Because like Colleen said, it ain't perfect.
I will say I think the music's pretty solid.
Oof, really?
I think I like the music.
Yeah.
Hang glider music put me to freaking sleep. Like, I hated the hang glider missions in this game. They were so slow.
I never had that issue.
Really?
No.
Oh.
It's fairly chill music that works for this. Apparently, this is also like very popular music within like the people that collect like vinyls of video game music.
You could see as an ambient soundtrack, it's probably pretty nice to kind of have in the background as you're like reading or like having friends over for a cup of tea or something. I could see that. As much as this game impresses me graphically, I feel like a lot of the presentation I just don't like. Like when I learned that this was developed largely by flight simulator designers, I'm like, well, first of all, that's why it's so good, but also like that's why the text is so basic. Like the fonts for like the "you cleared the ring," it's just it looks like a placeholder font. Like in Nintendo games, you're used to a certain amount of a certain coat of paint over everything. That I feel like at this times this game strangely lacks. When you fly through a ring, you get this weird like slide whistle. So, whee, whee. I was like, what do we do? I don't know, Colleen. Did you like how it's? I mean, I guess you did. You said you liked the music.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I said, like this is also nostalgia for me. So like you're looking at it probably now, I spent so much time with this game that it's like I go into it and it's just like with the cannonball, like oh, it's about here and like boom, first time. It's like I played it so much that it's just like nostalgia and it's just bringing it back. So it's like it just sounds like what like I expect it to.
It sounds like childhood, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm perfectly fine with the fonts as well. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Huh. Very, very boilerplate. I don't know. Well, here's something you guys can't argue with me on. As Mike mentioned, it says there's 6 characters. Well, there's really 3 characters and different skins for each character. There's the light class, the heavyweight class, and I forget what the middle one's called. Oh, average. And that makes a gameplay difference, the weight of the character. And as a result, some characters are just flat out better or worse at certain events. And I don't think you can pass some of those hang glider missions as the heavier characters. Someone in the comments let me know if there's a way, but some of them it's like you need to get lifted so quickly and the heavyweight characters just don't like respond fast enough. I feel like it was impossible. Colleen, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. No, yeah. I would switch up the characters as much, per thing. Like I'd go in, pick a character, and then like, okay, try it for like hours, and then like, okay, and then I'm gonna switch it all up and learn by default. Yeah, no, there are each pair of characters have their own strengths and weaknesses and do better at certain events.
Yeah, and I like that concept. I just feel like picking a certain character shouldn't make it borderline impossible. Like I feel like that's bad game design, personally.
I think it made you kind of play all the characters.
That's true. Otherwise, you pick your favorite and then not really experience the different. Okay.
And it's like they made 6, so it wasn't just like here's 6 for you to choose your favorite of. No, it's like you're gonna use all of them. At least you're gonna use the classes of them.
Okay. Well, permission to complain about the skydiving?
Yeah, permission granted.
It's awful. Like, so first of all, for most of the skydiving mission, you don't have the view of the approaching ground like you did in the Super Nintendo because you're above the clouds. And but the clouds kind of look like just this flat texture of like blue cotton candy, and the clouds aren't getting closer to you. So it really just kind of feels like you're just wiggling on like a dirty carpet or something. And then once you break through the clouds, now you're back in the proper open world and you have to land. But while you're above the clouds, you have to position yourself with the other skydivers and basically take formations. On paper, super cool concept. Way too finicky. I don't know if you remember this one, Colleen, but like it's really like I don't even want to say you have to be super precise because there were moments where my character was perfectly aligned with the silhouette, not doing it.
Yeah. But like I said, like I had hours and hours to play it, so I would just play it.
You'd figure it out.
Yeah.
Colleen tried the Jumble Hopper before we started recording. This is the one where you basically get the boots from Super Mario Brothers the movie.
Yeah.
And you have to launch yourself across the open worlds, but you don't have any visual representation for the angle your jump's gonna be.
Yeah.
It's not like the cannonball where you have numbers to use. It's just like feel it out. Ooh, I don't know, Colleen. This one's bad, right?
No, especially I think on the Switch because the like it was made for the N64 controller, and that joystick wasn't the most responsive.
True.
These ones are much more responsive. So I'm like playing it and I'm like little bit over and I'm like, oh, and now I'm facing the other way. And it's like, yeah, it was hard to like angle it.
You're right. They're too responsive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then so I'll just cede the floor after this last one, but like the hang glider has like a Pokemon Snap kind of mini game element where you have to take pictures, but you only get 6. And in some of the later missions, you are taking pictures of multiple things. So like the final one, you have to take pictures of 3 different things and then land. So like that's only two chances per landmark you're trying to photograph, and it's super finicky. Like you got to get really close up on it. And so Mike, trying to take a picture of the smokestack, you flew through the flames and caught on fire.
Yeah, and you just because I was Kiwi on that run. Some of the screams are a little bit cartoony-ish, like you start, they're not quite like Tarzan, Goofy L kind of thing to me.
Yeah,
but like they're all right. Kiwi sounds like if you heard that next door, you would call the cops. It is a very shocking scream,
blood curdling.
Yeah,
and I didn't expect it.
Yeah, so I don't know. I wanted to have fun with some of this game, but I just feel like it kind of.
My memory of it is also I never figured out the exact perfect spot to get really high scores. Like it was finicky in the scoring because you'll get close and you'll get a great shot with everything in it and it'll be like a low score, and then you'd get a shot where it's like like the bottom left corner there, and it's just that one would get a high score and then the next time it would get a low score.
Yeah,
the inconsistent scoring that doesn't really know what a good photo and a bad photo is really plays into the Pokemon Snapness of this.
Yes. Because like I have a kind of a stunning picture, if I do say so myself, of a smokestack with like glaciers in the background. And there's good there's a good depth of field to it. It's well framed, but the one next to it is higher because you're closer. It's just like, but again though, that's kind of nitpicky. Like this isn't a photo game. This was one little mode tacked onto hang gliding, so I don't want to harp on it too much.
And they do give you a sample photo to look at to see like what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah, so like I aimed for those and I was doing all right on the scores on them usually. Or I say on them for the one.
I don't think I ever looked at the reference photo, so that's probably part of my problem of trying to figure out what do you want, game?
Well, Colleen, based on your report card, we know you don't follow instructions very well, but you figure it out. Yeah. Damn it. You know what I mean?
I mean, to be fair, I was acing all my tests.
Yes.
It was just in
the homework.
Junior high, for some reason, homework was 50% of our grade, and it was to prepare us for high school. And I get to high school, and it's 10% of my grade.
You know what else was 50% of scoring? Freaking landing on a bunch of these.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly frustrating because it breaks up landing into like landing accuracy and like landing impact.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, the landing impact score.
it took me, I must say it took me so long to figure that out because I never figured it out. Um, one of the things that was a distinct barrier to me getting further was I did not know what that score was trying to measure. Like accuracy, I understood as a concept, but landing impact, I kept trying to land slower.
You'd think so.
That's what I was supposed to be.
It's also angle, though, right?
That's really what it is. Is I'd watched a Games Done Quick speedrun of it by Graviton, who beat this in like 31 minutes, which set the world record at the time.
Oh, wow.
Nice work, Graviton.
Yeah, it was nuts to watch him go through that and kind of.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and a lot of the speedrun stuff is going, okay, well, you have to do these parts perfectly, and then you can just skip the task on the next one because you just need to finish. And most of the points are coming off of landing at that point. And was watching that of seeing, oh, this is how you're supposed to be landing. And it's like, he's going like 50 kilometers an hour with the hang glider when he lands. It's just that he's barely descending, whereas I'm like dropping at five kilometers an hour. I'm like, I'm going slow. It wasn't clear to me how that score really, what actually mattered for that score. And I feel like the SNES game did a very good breakdown of how the points actually, what the things they were looking at were.
Right.
This one kind of just throws that in there. I'm like, that's 20 points, and I need to get like 80 out of 100 to get silver. I don't understand how 20 of the 100 points are even being calculated.
The scoring was not as forgiving as Super Nintendo.
Yeah. So like I ended up having to, I wouldn't say it wasn't as forgiving. It was a bit more opaque. So like I went back after that and suddenly was like, oh, okay, now that I know what I'm supposed to be doing, it's at least a little bit easier. Other things still were hard, but at least that was like, okay, now I kind of understand how these have to be working. I think I unlocked one or two extra things after that, where it's like, okay, now that I know what that means.
So does anyone else have something to add about Pilotwings 64 before we render our verdicts for today?
I will say this game has an amazing ability to be one of the most stressful chill games I've ever played.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good description of it.
Yeah. Low stress, high stress relaxation.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like, there's bits of this where it's like, I'm stressed about this, but it feels like I shouldn't be.
Especially the hang gliding, because the controls on the hang gliding were so...
I mean, or is it genius? And that's what flying is like. Like when you're up in the sky, it's super chill. It's not, no, but I guess in this game, that's when it's stressful and you're trying to get those freaking rings.
Yeah. Or, like get the perfect, like you got to get right on the air funnel.
The thermal current.
Yeah. And like any little thing is like, whew.
It's wild. Well, folks, that brings us to the moment of truth. We've covered the Joy Pros, the Joy Cons, and every bit in between. Now it's time to declare each game from today's episode as a NintenDO or a NintenDON'T. Let's start off with Pilotwings for the Super Nintendo. So, Colleen, I know your exposure to it was a bit limited, but you know what? Sometimes, listen, kids, I don't know if you've ever done this before. I know you use Amazon and Fortnite, everything. You used to go to the store and there'd be like kiosks to try a game while your parents were like getting toilet paper or something, and you'd be looking up, craning your neck to play the game. They still have them at Target. Go outside, my student who might be listening. Go to the store with your parents and play on a kiosk. Sometimes you only get a few minutes impression. So Colleen, from your limited time with Super Nintendo Pilotwings, NintenDO or NintenDON'T?
If I didn't know what the game was, right, like as a precursor for it, and like you said, like that whole example of like, this is just me as a kid picking up the controller at the store to give a few minutes trial, I don't think I would have picked it up.
Okay. So it's a NintenDON'T for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a NintenDO for me right now because I have such great memories of N64 one. And like, okay, I could play this and like figure it out. But if I was playing it on just first impression without that, it would have been a don't.
Well, are you going to? Because you have Nintendo Switch Online. Are you going to revisit Super Nintendo and try a little bit more, or are you going to pass?
I'm going to be sticking with the 64.
All right, NintenDON'T for Super Nintendo. Mike, where'd you land? Oh, look at that. Land?
Not on the land.
He's struggling.
I think I'm going NintenDON'T.
No.
It's
Oh.
very, very close, but there's just too many things that just felt so overly finicky that it was so frustrating.
It's funny. I wrote down the word finicky like 8 times in my notes for this episode. Yeah, it is finicky AF. It's can be truly, truly frustrating.
I blame Lance for this.
Um, you know, I personally, okay, so I've really come to appreciate the graphical wizardry of Nintendo that the devs were able to accomplish in the early 90s. The fact that this game is as old as I am and it's still visually impressive and feels tactily effective, I think it should be experienced, even if only for a bit. So, you know, this game is available on the base level Nintendo Switch Online subscription. Boot it up, see why Pink Floyd found it so enthralling, and if you're willing to rewind like a bastard, like I did, you might enjoy it like I did. It's a Nintendo.
Okay, but if you had come across it in the store as a kid and tried it out there,
Well, I see what you're saying. It probably would have been a NintenDO'N't, but I'm rating this based on modern functionality.
mhm,
So I will be the one holdout Nintendo for my poor Pilot Wings on Super Nintendo.
It's definitely a mixed bag.
Okay, so it's a reluctant NintenDO'N't.
Yeah, it's a struggle to pick. It's very close to that edge.
for me, it's mostly just I have such nostalgia for the N64 one that, like, if I'm going to pick up a Pilot Wings game to play, it's going to be that.
That's valid. Yeah. I mean, sometimes games improve so much with later iterations that you really wouldn't want to revisit something like
Mhm.
this. So Colleen, Pilot Wing 64, Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Now there's two other tiers that our listeners have invented, or our guest hosts have invented. There's Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64, which is a must play.
Is this for me personally, or for people recommending it for people?
However you want to do it.
Yeah, follow your heart.
Okay, for me personally, it would be a Super Nintendo 64 based purely on the nostalgia.
That's that's valid.
Yeah. Would I rate it for that for people, like, because I understand it's not my they're not gonna have the connection to it that I would have had.
Yeah.
So I would have just said, give it a try. So I would say it was a Nintendo to try it, but make your own decision.
And it hits for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Love it.
Mostly on the nostalgia.
I mean, that's one of the most fun things about this podcast is learning people's histories with these games. Mike, you are Nintendo or NintenDO'N't for the 64. Tell us.
I think I think one thing's going to swing it over to. I think I'm going to go a Super Nintendo on this one.
Whoa.
And I think the Little States thing, there's so much fun out of that that I think that, and you don't have to be that good to get to that level because I got to that level in the couple hours I was playing.
Yeah.
Like I'd hoped to because I saw it in the manual. I was able to get to that. That level alone is just so fun to explore or have some of the challenges on it that I think that's what pushes it up from a Nintendo to a Super Nintendo for me.
Fascinating. Yeah, I mean, Colleen can attest to this. When you're a little kid and you're like, oh my gosh, this is you boot at the level and it's the shape of America. You're like, no, this is America. There's the St. Louis Arch. There's the Empire State Building. It's thrilling. It was thrilling as a kid.
There was that it was awesome as an adult because there was a lot more that I expected of it. To come to fly around something and just be like, hey, wait a minute, that's the St. Louis Arch. Because I didn't think that it was going to do as much detail as it did. It'd be like, okay, now I'm in the Grand Canyon. There's DC.
So this is an interesting one for me because I'm kind of opposite of where you guys are at. I thought that Pilot Wing 64 gets a lot wrong in terms of the game being fun. I think that there are maps and modes and things you can do that are really entertaining, but trying to beat this game. I mean, Colleen, I'm impressed that you, as a child, beat it. I guess it was one of your only games. You just played it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's just brutally finicky. It's so precise, some of the point requirements to get to the next mission, that it really started to wear on me. But in preparing for this episode and playing with y'all beforehand and trying to pass the controller, just the cannonball mode alone, I think that could be a fun party thing. You have a house party, to have people do the human cannonball mode. You laugh at how far people got off the shot. I could see someone just kind of vibing out with it. This is a great game. I think if you're not looking for something really intense and more of like a house party vibe. So it's a reluctant Nintendo for me because I think that the fun I had today and in talking with you guys about it kind of swayed me. I was a NintenDO'N't, but y'all convinced me.
It's a lot more playable also just in that you can redo as much as you need to a particular challenge in a way that if you had to redo the whole thing, it would be a lot more frustrating. Because I mean, I was doing a lot of redoing because I wasn't, saving every turn.
That's how I beat it. Was like I would just, all right, I got a silver, but I wanted to get the gold. So I would just reboot it and just retry.
Well, and that's why I enjoyed the Super Nintendo because you can rewind. That's the ultimate retry. You don't have to even do the whole level again. You just retry that landing over and over till you get it. But that's me making my own fun with the rewind feature.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
all. That's how you do it.
Yeah. So guys, we're gonna call that game over for today. The final score for Pilotwings on the SNES is a NintenDO'N't. I tried my best. Pilotwings on the SNES. Leave a comment if you also think Colleen and Mike are wrong. And Pilotwings 64 is a unanimous Nintendo. Colleen, it's been so wonderful just getting to know you better through this game and just talking to you. And I definitely hope to. I mean, I know I'm gonna see you again, but yeah, hope to have you back on the podcast one day.
There's other episodes I'll be on.
And everyone, join us next time when we will be screwballing our way into two Nintendo classics, Metroid for the NES and Metroid 2 for the Game Boy. Also, don't forget to visit www.theoldswitcharoo.com. There you can find links to our Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and all the social medias you can shake a joystick at. At least I think most of those social medias will still be up. You can even leave an old-timey voicemail, meaning we would literally love to hear from you, or even better, join the fun on our Discord server. You can play games, talk games, and even make a friend or two. Big thanks to Crystal Fields for our incredible intro song, and thank you, dear listener, for liking, commenting, subscribing, reviewing, and playing along with us every step of the way. This has been the Old Switcheroo. We've been talking gaming retro with Mike and Jaymo.
I've been Mike.
And I've been Jaymo. Game on, everyone. What are you doing to Kiwi, just slamming her into the walls like that?
That's between me and Kiwi.
Okay, and Mike got no points.
Yeah.
As is tradition.
Mike landed in a field near palm trees.
Is that worth any points?
No.
7.